Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to be here with you in Athens at the Conservatoire, and it's also a pleasure for me to greet our viewers on video. My name is Farah Nayeri. I'm a journalist for the New York Times, and this next panel is about Brazil. So I will ask you please to minimize conversation and pay close attention, because we're talking about the world's 5th largest country and one of the richest and most diverse cultures on the planet, a culture that's very close to my heart. One of my great dreams in life is to learn Portuguese. Unfortunately, I speak almost none. And however, backstage, I discovered that Ambassador Neto, who's sitting 2 seats from me, used to be the ambassador to Iran, which is my homeland. So I speak Persian, he speaks Portuguese. Maybe after this talk, we can arrange some kind of conversation exchange. That would be nice. Anyway, the focus of the discussion with our excellent panelists, as you'll see, is the environment. And the question we're going to try to answer is, how green a future can Brazil have? Brazil is a little bit of a paradox, as many of you know, when it comes to the climate. The COP30 summit will be held in Belém in Brazil next month, November. So the climate discussions are very much on the Brazilian map, and Brazil is on the world climate map in many ways. It's one of the world's cleanest large economies in terms of electricity, and I think it's something we will hear from you, James, shortly, but it's also a major polluter. And again, if I could ask people to minimize noise and distraction. So Brazil's carbon emissions matter to all of us because it's not just a matter for the 212 million Brazilians, the population of Brazil. That's a lot of people. But it's also important for us. As all of you know, the Amazon rainforest stores between 150 and 200 billion tons of carbon in its trees and soils. That's the equivalent of 15 to 20 years of global carbon dioxide emissions at today's rates. So destroying the Amazon rainforest is not something that concerns the Brazilians, it's something that concerns all of us everywhere, because it releases this carbon into the ozone layer and it accelerates climate change across the planet for all of us. The other matter is that around 45 to 50% of Brazil's greenhouse gas emissions come from deforestation. Cattle ranching is the main driver of Amazon deforestation. There are also other drivers, I have to say economic drivers: soy expansion, logging, mining. When trees are cut and burned for these activities, the carbon stored in the biomass and soil is released as carbon dioxide. And Brazil is also the largest exporter of beef, and a top producer of soybeans, corn, coffee, and sugar. All of these are elements which, sadly, they do contribute to economic growth and prosperity. They also contribute to climate deterioration. So it's a question I would like to put to our first panelist, because the other reality is that in terms of clean energy, it seems Brazil's doing pretty well. So James Bacchus, you're our first speaker, professor of global affairs at the University of Central Florida, and you are the director of the university's Center for Global Economic and Environmental Opportunity, but you are also the chief judge, formerly, of the World Trade Organization, so you understand trade matters very well, and you're author of a new book, and you gave me the leaflet backstage, so I might as well share it with you, Democracy for a Sustainable World. Dr. Bacchus, I wondered if you could kind of speak to us about how Brazil is actually performing pretty well on the clean energy front.
I'll be happy to do so. I want to thank the forum for inviting me. It's an honor to be on this panel. Let me begin with a premise, if I may. One of my firm convictions is that democracy and the green growth of sustainable development are linked. They're inextricably interrelated. In my view, we cannot have one without the other. Why is that? The human development that is one of the consequences of the economic, social, and environmental sustainable development enhances our ability to be capable of governing ourselves democratically and making democracy work. At the same time, it is the practice of democracy, especially participatory and deliberative democracy, that helps us find the will and the way to achieve sustainable development. It seems to me that many people in Brazil understand this, and that's why Brazil has the chance to become the first major developing country to be truly a green economy. At this point, half of Brazil's energy comes from renewable sources, hydroelectric.
That's extraordinary. I don't know if you heard that. Half of Brazil, say that again?
Half of Brazil's energy comes from renewable resources, hydroelectric, wind, and solar especially. This is about twice the world average. So Brazil already has a head start, and they're doubling down on clean energy with a very forward-looking energy plan that includes a promise to eliminate illegal deforestation by 2028, which is a very good goal.
That's very ambitious, given all the economic benefits
and
that come from
at the same
deforestation.
time, I am very impressed that Brazil is doubling down on democracy. Our topic here this week, despite significant pressure from abroad, from a would-be bully to the north, Brazil is standing up for its rights as a democratic country to decide its own fate. And I'm happy to say that in connection with the COP30, the upcoming climate summit in Brazil in November, the government of Brazil is supporting the further elaboration of a global citizens' assembly and is supporting a plan that would make a global citizens' assembly chosen by random selection, by sortition, part of the climate COP on an annual basis going forward, expanding from involving tens of thousands of people worldwide to millions worldwide. Right. That's an extraordinary step by a sovereign nation state. So I think Brazil at this juncture has the opportunity finally to become what has long been said to be the country of the future.
The country of the future. I like that. Congratulations to the Brazilians on the panel. Your country is the country of the future. I'm waiting for my country to be the country of the future. We have a way to go on that one.
We're having some troubles in my own country now, too.
Yeah, that's true. You're not doing so great either, if I may say. Ambassador Neto, Cesário Melantonio Neto, you're a former ambassador, Brazilian ambassador, as I mentioned, also posted to Greece, not just Iran. There were 10 countries that you were posted in. And when we were speaking earlier, we had a little exchange. And what you said is that, yes, Brazil is on the right track to do what Dr. Bacchus, James was saying. In other words, more and more renewable energy, more green. However, this also depends on what the government of Brazil does. Can you explain?
Thank you. Yes, this is a very important question, the role of the Brazilian government to protect the Amazon forest. I will begin shortly with some data, very precise, just to give an importance, not only for the world, but also for my country, of the protection of the tropical rainforest. Brazil has 8.5 million square kilometers.
Yes, it does.
5 million square kilometers of our territory, 2/3 of the territory is occupied by the Amazon tropical rainforest. The Amazon tropical rainforest has 7 million square kilometers, is scattered throughout South America, 2 million in other countries, but 5 million in Brazil, just to begin with. So next month in the COP30 in Belém in Brazil, among other initiatives that will depend, of course, on the reaction of the world community, Brazil is going to present a proposition for a new international fund to the protection of forests worldwide.
Oh, wow, okay.
And the Brazilian government, which is striking even for me, but that's the idea, is supposed to contribute, depending on the resources of other countries, up to $4 billion, which is an enormous amount, and which shows the importance of the forest for us.
That's really interesting. So at COP30, we're going to have participatory democracy, citizen assembly, representation, and we're going to have a new fund for deforestation worldwide.
Yes.
To which Brazil is going to give billions. That's amazing.
Yes.
Antonio, it's so nice to be with you here on this panel. Our next speaker is Antonio Isuperio. He's an architect and a Brazil country specialist at Amnesty International USA. Antonio, you make the absolutely central point, which I think no one in this room will disagree with. And I'm hoping the teenagers here will listen and let us know what they think afterwards. It's very, very nice to have adolescent participants at this conference. It really is one of the highlights. Is that there can be no sustainability if attention and respect is not paid to the people of Brazil. And by that I mean all 212 million of them. And that climate has a direct impact on Brazil's communities, including and specifically the Black and Indigenous communities. Take it away, Antonio.
First, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, especially as Afro-Brazilian, LGBT, and representative from the marginalized communities. I was born in a favela, so it's really important to have a place to speak in a panel, such an important panel like this. As I'm a little bit freak of data, I brought infographic to show you guys to, I think, highlight everything that I would like to share with you guys and express what I think that should be really detailed when we are talking about democracy, especially. We are in an event that the core theme is democracy, and we also have AI, and we also have human rights. And I heard yesterday that there's no democracy without human rights, and I think we should highlight that. And that's why I would like to show some data with you guys, because at the same time that this country, that is a continental country, right? It's so huge. We have a lot of complexities that small countries like yours does not have. So, for example, we have for a pretty young democracy, I think my friend will agree with me, we have a pretty solid democracy, understanding the time that we are. Since 1950s, for example, we opened the General Assembly, and we are leading more than 50 peacekeeping actions at the United Nations. In Brazil, often lead these actions of peacemaking in countries of war. For example, Brazil led the UN draft the UN Gaza ceasefire that unfortunately it was denied, but we lead that. And this is a part of history that we, as a country, intentionally, and diplomacy, and we also are inside of the top 10 of the largest economy since 2000. So it's like a quarter of a century that we are in this place of the main players of the world, let's say like that. For most of people that does not know, racism and homophobia is a crime in Brazil. And this is one of the only places in the world that someone could actually go to jail when they are homophobic, when they are...
Yeah, so human rights are really very advanced in your country.
Yeah.
Racism and homophobia, you go to jail for them.
Yeah, and so our constitution is really strong, but that's when I draw the line, because in the other hand, despite we have all this advance, we also are the country that is more dangerous than anywhere else to be a black youth. We kill one person, 12% every 12 minutes. We killed one person.
You kill 12 people every 12 minutes?
No, we kill 12 people every 20 minutes.
12 people every 20 minutes.
Yeah, 12 black persons. So it's really crazy. And we also are the place that LGBT are mostly, it's most dangerous places to be than anywhere else. And this is data from The Guardian. So every data that I'm showing to you here, we know that we are in a place of fake news, right? It's the data that you can verify. So since 2013, for example, we are talking about this development of the green. Brazil really leads when we are talking about green economy and green fuel. But since 2013, we have more cows than people in Brazil. And you never heard that a cattle was dying by hunger, right? So
more cows dying, you were saying?
No, we never hear that a cow was dying with a lack of food. So we are having a dispute of a land to produce food for people that actually mostly black people, actually mostly indigenous people, then produce food to feed cows that most of the time these cows not even going to be eaten by the Brazilians. So we are the second largest.
I hear you.
Yeah, we are the second largest producers of food in the entire planet. We're going to be the first one, technically, in the next year. And we have half of the population that are in the food insecurity. So this is about decisions. This is about decisions of democracy. So at the same time that we have all this structure, why we have the half of the population, and this half of the population is the same amount of the population that represent the amount of black and indigenous people in Brazil. So
there's a kind of inequality. When we talk about climate, we are maybe disregarding the needs of half of the Brazilian population because they have different needs, don't they? I mean, it's different questions, different issues, different problems. That's what we're saying. So when we speak about sustainability, this is what the point that Antonio is making with his slide and with his comments and these stark statistics, is that sustainability in the environment and ecological balance cannot be achieved without attention being paid to the entire Brazilian population.
Could I?
Yes, please, because we will also, we're about to go to a video that Antonio brought.
Okay, well, just to reinforce what Antonio has said, I was involved with the Earth Summit, the first one in 1992 when I was in the Congress of the United States, and then I was in Rio for Rio Plus 20 years later, helping put together what became the Sustainable Development Goals. There is a global misunderstanding about what sustainability means. Sustainability does not just relate to the environment. Sustainable development relates to the environmental, social, and economic goals of the people of the world. The first of the Sustainable Development Goals is to eliminate poverty. The second is to eliminate hunger. The third is to provide decent health care. Yes, many of them are about the environment. All of these things are, in the words of the UN, holistic. They cannot be separated, and that's his point.
That's a very good introduction to Antonio's video. Antonio has brought to us an incredibly powerful short video. I think it's less than 2 minutes. But it's a video exclusively produced for us, right, Antonio? By a Brazilian indigenous leader. Angelos, backstage, if you could send us the video, if you could play it.
Meu nome é Bacchus Tupinambá e eu sou do povo Tupinambá de Olivença, no sul da Bahia. Nós fomos o primeiro povo a ser contatado no litoral brasileiro. Sobrevivemos a séculos de violência. Meu nome é Bacchus Tupinambá e eu sou do povo Tupinambá de Olivença, no sul da Bahia. Nós fomos o primeiro povo a ser contatado no litoral brasileiro. Sobrevivemos a séculos de violência, de invasões, de tentativas de apagar nossa cultura. E ainda hoje, o Estado brasileiro nos nega o direito mais básico, o reconhecimento de nosso território. Vivemos sob o peso do racismo todos os dias. Somos ameaçados por grupos armados como Invasão Zero. Vemos nosso território ser explorado pelo turismo predatório, devorado pela especulação imobiliária, envenenado pela mineração que destrói nossas terras, nossos rios, nossa mata. E mesmo diante de tudo isso, seguimos de pé, seguimos porque carregamos a força dos nossos ancestrais. Dos 11 mantos sagrados arrancados de nós e espalhados em museus da Europa, apenas um retornou no último ano. Para nós, ele não é um objeto e nunca foi. É um ancião, uma prova viva de que resistimos ao genocídio. Mas até esse retorno foi marcado pelo desrespeito. Não fomos ouvidos, nem convidados, nem autorizados a receber nosso ancião com a dignidade devida. Fomos reduzidos a espectadores daquilo que é nosso. Por isso, diante desta Assembleia Mundial afirmamos: não aceitaremos ser sombras da nossa própria história. Exigimos que nossos sagrados retornem a Olivença, nossa aldeia-mãe no sul da Bahia. Esse é o nosso chamado. Que nos escutem, que nos respeitem, porque enquanto nossos anciões viverem, nós também resistiremos.
Thank you, Antonio, for bringing us that really powerful, powerful video. I'm going to turn to the other Brazilian on our panel. Ambassador Neto, what is your reaction to this extraordinary?
Yes, I was going to ask for the floor. Thank you. To say something about it. As I like numbers, as you notice, sometimes we Brazilians we are trying to know or to learn that in 1500, when we were discovered by Portugal in the 16th century, is not exactly correct information because nobody knows exactly, but there is an idea that there were 5 million Indians in Brazil in 1500. And as a joke that is not a joke, is a fact, we say that the only real Brazilians, and it's true, are the Indians. Because all the other Brazilians, we came from abroad, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Europe, from Latin America, so they are the real Brazilians. And it looks like today, if again the number is exact, we have only 300,000 Brazilian Indians. And then we come back to your first question, the role of the government. To see how in a country like Brazil, a federal republic with many states, but with 2/3 of the national budget in the hands of the federal government in Brasilia, you can see how important is the role of the government. In our first government in Brazil, during 4 years, and then you can see how a bad government can damage the Brazilian tropical forests, our own forests by our own government. As there was no control by police force, by army, navy, or air force, or state police during 4 years, 250,000 square kilometers were destroyed. If you come to absolute numbers, 5 million square kilometers I mentioned, you say, okay, it's not so much, you still have 95. Yes, we have 95, but 5% is much more than most of the European countries, 250,000 square kilometers. This government, in 2 years and a half, has tried, it's difficult, to restore half of this 5% lost. That is 125,000 square kilometers in 4 years. So now we still have 1 year and 3 months, but the balance will be done, and the information exactly, I don't have it, will be given to the world community during COP30 in Belém next year.
So a lot going on this COP30, which is next month. If you want to follow it, it's going to be in Belém, Brazil. I wish somebody would send me there. I've never been to Brazil. I'm feeling more and more Brazilian as this panel goes on, by osmosis. And so we have about 5.5 minutes, and we'd love to hear from you, our wonderful audience. And so, you know, any points of curiosity, any questions, please don't be shy. Yes, please, we have a question. This young lady here, if you could please introduce yourself with your name and profession.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I'm Colleen Arcaina. I'm a human rights lawyer from the Philippines. My question is, actually, this is taking on from the point on how we center, when we talk about environmental and ecological sustainability, we can't not talk about the human person and human rights. So my question is, how is Brazil approaching issues like, for example, greenwashing? So, you know, in the wake of corporations appearing to say that, you know, we are here for green energy, we are here to help you, for example, transition to more renewable sources of energy. How can we make sure that when we, you know, when we do extraction or when we build solar farms, that we are not displacing indigenous peoples, for example, from their ancestral lands? So I think this is my question, and maybe what is the Brazil government doing, and what is our role, you know, as people to ensure these things?
Thank you very much. Excellent question. James, do you want to take that one? How corporations are greenwashing?
Sure. This is a huge problem. Many corporations are trying to do the right thing, not because they're noble, but because from their perspective, climate change, biodiversity loss, ecological challenges are risks, and these risks have costs, and they could diminish profits, diminish their ability to provide products going forward. Food companies are a very good example here. But there also is greenwashing. An example of a problem that's been widespread in the past in Brazil, but it's part of a global problem, has been carbon credit trading, where you get permission to do a bad thing in exchange for doing a good thing, but the good thing turns out not to be all that good or not to get done. Well, there's a lot being done now to change that, and a lot more needs to be done to change that. And if that's successful, we'll see a lot more protection of the Amazon. And one more legal point here, if I may. There are two basic principles of environmental law that are at issue in Brazil as respects the Amazon. Both of them are in the Rio Declaration that was concluded in 1992 at that first Earth Summit. One of them is the principle of national sovereignty over natural resources. Every country has the right to decide what to do with its own natural resources. But another is the principle of transboundary harm. No country is allowed to act environmentally in a way that causes environmental harm elsewhere. Conventionally, that may be poisoning in a river that goes downstream in another country, but in the context of the lungs of the world, the Amazon, it may be that other countries have a say, in addition to Brazil, in what happens in the Amazon. That's an unresolved international legal issue.
Right. The clock is ticking. Frankly, I would really have liked to give the last word to the great leader, the indigenous leader who we saw on the screen. She was so popular. But I will give the last word to her representative, her delegate here, Antonio. Please, Antonio, what are your final thoughts?
I think it's really interesting when we are talking about democracy and we understand, Maria was saying that we are 2 minutes to the end of democracy, right? And we also just was speaking a lot on the pandemic about social isolation. So I think we would have to understand that some communities never experience something different of social isolation, and they never experience democracy. So that's what I think the message we would say. And that's why it's so important to have marginalized communities always in the table to have a discussion and to bring the real perspectives. Because I really think when we are not in the table, we are in the menu.
Will they be represented at COP?
Yeah. And we will be there too, and they will be there too. But I think it's really important always to, because when we are talking about the pollution and stuff, we know where will be the places that the pollution will go, and where will be the places that we will allow the pollutions to go. So that's, I think, is the message, the end message.
Thank you so much to my wonderful panel on Brazil, and thank you all for being here with us. Thank you.